Hey everybody, this is Mr. Storm. In this video, we're going to talk about the box model. We're going to talk about borders, margin, padding, height and width, what the box model means. We're going to talk about outline. We're going to talk about all this kind of really cool stuff in the lesson today. So let's talk about borders first. The border property allows you to create a border around your element. So you can have a border on all sides. You can have a bottom border, rounded borders, a blue left border with a background color change, which looks really nice. And you can change the border style. You can do dotted, dash, solid, double, groove, all this stuff. And you can play around with it and see what it looks like, right? I like the inset and outset. Those are cool looking too. And really all you do is you just indicate that you want a border, right? So we've created a new paragraph class and we've set the border style to dotted. That's all they've done. You can change the color of the border. You can do all kinds of stuff to your border. Let's see. Yeah, border width. You can change the thickness of your border. You can change the specific side width. So let's say if you wanted a border that had a skinny top and bottom, but a fat, left and right, you can do that. You can just specify all four of them individually if you want. So the way this works is if you only indicate two numbers, then it's going to, the first number is be top and bottom. The second number is going to be left and right. If you only indicate one number, then that's going to apply to everything. But if you indicate all four, then it's going to go top, right, bottom, left. That's the order they're indicated in. All right. Border color. So the border color is basically just like we were applying color to our background in the last week, except you're using border hyphen color instead. And again, you can apply specific colors to specific sides. And this page here explains more about how to indicate by a specific side. All right. You can also indicate a bunch of stuff about a border just by using shorthand. So if you do like border 5 pixels solid red, that'll change the thickness, the style, and the color all in one line of text. That makes it really, really easy. For rounded borders, you can use the border radius property, which will allow you to set a radius for the round, for the roundness. And if we change that to, I don't know, say 30 pixels, oh, that's not going to work. So notice that like 12 is about as high as it can go for roundness because it's almost perfectly round. But up here, if we did 5 pixel, it only rounds it just a little bit, right? Okay, so there's a lot you can do with borders. Let's talk about margin. So margin isn't the line around the element, it's the area outside of the element. The margin will allow you to have some distance between the element it's inside and the edge of the element that you're writing this for. And you can set margin top, right, left, and bottom and left, just like we were doing with the border. Let's see. All that's good. Ooh, the auto value. Margin auto will try to automatically horizontally center your item in the middle of the page. That's something really important to remember. Or in the middle of the item that it's inside. Okay. Margin collapse. So let's see, margin collapse. So the H1 has a bottom margin of 50 and the H2 has a top margin of 20, which means this margin will be 70 because it's 70, which is 50 plus 20. However, if we create a margin collapse, then it'll actually make it be 50, right? So margin collapse is essentially an element that, or it's a kind of a defect of margins. Top and bottom margins of elements are sometimes collapsed collapse into a single margin that is equal to the largest of the two margins. It does not happen to left and right margins, only top and bottom margins. So make sure you're aware of that when you're trying to create margins. Padding is the opposite of margin. Padding is the distance between the border and the content of the element, right? So padding is inside, whereas margin is outside. So padding is inside. But it's essentially the same thing. All the same stuff that we talked about just a minute ago with margins, that applies to padding as well. All right, height and width. Height and width is really, really important, especially for our elements. Now, so far we've only used it for images, and that makes sense. You want your images to be the right height and width. Here we can set things like, we can create a div that has a width of 50%. Well, what does that mean? That means that it's going to be 50% of the container that it's contained inside, right? 50%. It also has a height, a dedicated height of 200 pixels. So if we use px to indicate a height or a width, we're indicating an actual pixel size, whereas if we use a percent, we're indicating a percentage. And if we try, let's try this. Let's try margin auto. Let's see if that works for divs. There it is. So that margin auto actually put the div in the middle of the page, which is cool. Okay. Let's see. Max width. Max width is something that we want to pay attention to. Max width will allow you to set the size of your div. Notice that the div is a regular size, but as we shrink it down, then it will shrink the size of that div as we resize the browser. Okay. Max width. Okay. All right. Now, all of this comes together in this model called the box model. Remember, you have your content, you have the padding on the inside, the border, and then you have the margin on the outside. Now, setting width, border, padding, and margin for your elements is incredibly important to make them look the way you want them to look. And we're going to see that when we work on the assignment today. Outline is essentially something that goes on the outside of the border that will make it stand out. So it's like an extra border that you can apply. And the outline is drawn outside the element's border, and it may overlap other content, but it's not a part of the element's dimensions, okay? So you can use outline as well if you'd like. All right, spend some more time exploring these links that I've given you, read more detail, try out the exercises, play around with the examples they've given you, and once you have a good idea, a good grasp of what we're doing, then move on to working on the quiz and the assignment for the week. All right, thanks for paying attention. See you next time.